the island of Hawaii. This is the largest island in the United States, a place that houses 10 of the world's climate zones. Hawaii, the Big Island, is the realm of the gods and goddesses, whose exploits are enshrined in song and endure forever in the wind, the waves, and the sky. For nearly 40 years, a select group have come here to test themselves against this legendary island and the iconic sporting event that matches it in might and prestige. This ultimate challenge pushes the mind, body, and spirit to limits you have never known. But if one succeeds here and finishes, it will be remembered forever.
You are an Ironman!
This is the 2017 Ironman World Championship. On the second weekend of October, on the island of Hawaii, Kailua Kona rises long before sunrise. The welcoming aloha spirit and calmness of the morning in this quiet tropical town belies the intensity of the day ahead, the 39th edition of the Ironman World Championship.
Go right there and get your numbers.
Number? 107.
Just over 2,500 athletes gather, 93 professionals, the rest age groupers, each one having earned a spot at one of 44 qualifying races around the globe. While making it to Ironman's main event is itself the realization of a dream for many, to others it's a chance to try and place yourself among the greats. German Olympic gold medalist Jan Frodeno has done just that, earning the Ironman World Championship title the last 2 years.
Having won Hawaii is a pretty elite group of guys. Having repeated it, that was fantastic last year. But when the gun goes, all of that doesn't matter. And it's hard to remind myself of that sometimes, that really it's race by race.
To achieve the three-peat, Frodeno must stay ahead of his countryman Sebastian Kienle, the 2014 Ironman World Champion, who placed second just 1 year ago, but he's not a second-place kind of guy.
What really gives me the biggest advantage, and that's in here. Ironman is all about doing the impossible things and the things you don't think you are capable of.
Last year, yet another German established himself as a contender. Patrick Lange had the run of his life, getting off the bike in 23rd place, but then running himself into third. In doing so, Lange broke a 27-year-old run course record. That bike time included a penalty, so get rid of that, and he's in the game. Outside of the top 3 finishers from a year ago, there are some others in the mix. One of them is Canadian Lionel Sanders. He's competed in Ironman since 2010 and knows that physical training is only part of this crazy mental game.
Really, it's just going to come down to who wants it more and who has done the mental training. This means so much to me. I mean, I call upon that when the going gets tough.
On the women's side, Swiss triathlete Daniela Rief has been thoroughly dominant since her Ironman debut in 2014. Having won back-to-back Ironman World Championships in 2015, And 2016, another victory this year will cement her legacy as one of the greatest triathletes of all time.
I know I'm on the peak of my career, so I look to all of the last 3 races in Kona. I look back and I'm like, that was awesome, and that's what I want to do again.
But there are many women who want to stop her run. Australia's Sarah Crowley comes in as the #1 challenger, confident in her talent and all too aware that on any given day, anything is possible.
Kona every year is the opportunity to be able to compete against the best athletes in the world. A successful result is like a career-defining moment, so it would just be magic.
American Heather Jackson could also contend with Reef. She finished 3rd in last year's event, so this is her next chance. And she's been planning for it for years.
I've dedicated the past 3 seasons towards this race, dreaming of being the Ironman world champ. And if that were to happen, for me, it would almost be like, oh, my lifelong dream come true.
Unlike Jackson, 24-year-old Lucy Charles is a wild card to watch. The British triathlete is making the transition from age grouper to professional, quite rare. And while she's known as an exceptional swimmer and biker, it's the pressure that make it in the way of the talent.
I competed as an age grouper in 2015. That was my first time on the island, and I won the 18 to 24 age group. So I've got a good feel of the island, and I kind of know what to expect, but I imagine that Saturday's race is going to be a lot more exciting and furious racing.
This is the 2017 Ironman World Championship, 39th edition of the greatest race on earth.
As the sun makes its way over the horizon, 93 elite professional athletes and 2,400 others approach the waterline. All of them have one thing in common: nerves. The anticipation before the start can be a unique form of agony.
Race morning is a stressful experience. I get nervous. I try and get as much positive thinking going in my head as I possibly can.
Everybody's watching, and if your head's not on straight, then, you know, little things can turn into big things.
That is probably the scariest part of the day. Walking up to the steps, down into the water. Literally, I find myself like hyperventilating a little bit.
6:34 a.m. 1 minute before start time, thousands of onlookers gather to witness the moment. Their eyes locked onto the first wave of athletes. 55 pro men, all of whom have what it takes to make this a race to remember.
This is the World Championship. Good luck.
With the boom of the cannon, the Ironman World Championship is underway.
There they go, your men professionals.
Five minutes later, it's time for the female pros.
2017 women professionals on their way.
When the stillness returns, the start line belongs to the age groupers. The heart and soul of any Ironman, these thousands of men and women, aged 18 to 84, will all need to undertake the 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike, and a full marathon, while withstanding the legendary island conditions. To each of them, Kona is more than just a race or a way to test their bodies. It's the culmination of a commitment made a long time ago. There are countless reasons why they push themselves to the limits and beyond. And each individual story is as unique as the person who carries it. Still, no matter their reason for being here, the only things that will get them their finish is preparation, determination, and a little good fortune.
We've got 30 seconds.
The island of Hawaii. The Ironman World Championship. Nearly 2,500 athletes are spread out across the 2.4-mile swim in the Pacific. Using his talent in the water, Kona rookie Josh Amberger creates separation from the established contenders. He opens a lead over the chase group, which includes two-time Ironman World Champion Jan Frodeno and 16 other professional men who all want to be in play. For the women, two pros have pulled ahead. One a rookie in Great Britain's Lucy Charles, and the other an all-American swimmer in Lauren Brandon. The two women are creating some distance from their main competition. Back-to-back Ironman World Champion Daniela Ryf. But they're also closing in on the professional men who had a 5-minute head start. This is serious swimming. Up ahead at the pier, Josh Amberger approaches the swim exit with a 1.5 minute lead.
There he is, out of the Josh Amberger from Queensland, Australia.
With his swim complete, 29-year-old Amberger is the most hunted man in Hawaii. And while this is his first Ironman World Championship, he knows his Ironman history.
I'm here to respect the race and respect the history here, but at the same time, I'm not trying to let it intimidate me in any way.
Amberger is pressing early to create as much a separation as possible over the rest of the field. It's the only thing he can do.
There he goes out on the bike, up Palani.
The chase group is nearing the swim exit and transition 1. A group that includes two-time defending Ironman World Champion, Jan Frodeno.
They're coming out right now, and I see our defending champion looking behind him, Jan Frodeno. Nicholas Castellian from Australia, Marco Alpert, Estonia.
Frodeno leads the pack out of the water.
That, no doubt, was one of the largest packs we've ever seen come out of the water together.
Seconds in transition can be the difference at the end of the day. It creates a frantic pulse. Frodeno and 16 others head for the mountain line. Right now, they are all in play. The pursuit of Amberger is on. Frodeno, the returning champion, the man to beat, and the one most competitors are keen on. Right now, he's in a good position, down only 1.5 minutes to a rookie. But Josh Amberger isn't acting like this is his first time in Kona. He is going to enjoy this as long as he can. As Josh and the men make their way towards the famed Queen Ka'amanu Highway, the women who started 5 minutes behind the men are nearing the swim exit. The UK's Lucy Charles and American Lauren Brandon have caught up to the back end of the professional men. where they find Canadian Lionel Sanders, along with 2014 Ironman world champion, Sebastian Kienle. They exit the Roca swim course 6 minutes behind the lead man, and only a few strokes in front of Lucy Charles, who pulled ahead of Lauren Brandon.
Lucy Charles was first out of the women. Lauren Brandon.
Heading out on the bike and beginning the 112-mile-long journey, Charles and Brandon have created a 4-minute lead over Daniela Reef.
We've got our two-time defending champion, Daniela Reef.
Reef is composed and more capable than anyone else to overcome a 4-minute deficit. Everyone knows that.
There goes Daniela Reef, your defending champion.
Josh Amberger settles into the bike ride on the Queen Ka'ahumanu Highway. He's pushing the pace on his own, but just behind is a large group who've increased their tempo. They are coming.
I approach every race knowing that it could be just myself for a long time at the front. I've trained to be self-reliant. I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing if I'm out in front by myself.
Talking the talk is one thing, but executing on the day is another one altogether. And Josh in particular, he's a great athlete. He has some incredible tools that he has able to call on, but Kona is a different animal.
Sometimes ignorance is bliss. Problem is, bliss doesn't usually last long in Kona. As the front of the race heats up on the Queen Ka'ahumanu Highway, there are still over 2,400 age group athletes in the water of Kailua Bay. These athletes share this course with the professionals, confront the same challenges, exert the same effort. Some seek competition or the grueling physical challenge. For others, the journey of becoming an Ironman is a lesson in self-discovery, an intricate process of finding peace through pain. It is a prescription no doctor can write. That's something Marine Corps veteran Sergeant Mike Ergo can attest to. Ergo found this sport after serving 2 tours in Iraq, and it may have played a hand in saving his life.
Driving into the city in armored vehicles, seeing tracer fire overhead, hearing gunfire, shouting, not knowing which direction it's coming from or who's shooting at who. And that was Fallujah. The war got real less than a full month into it, and that was from an IED. My best friend, Todd Godwin, was blown up, killed almost instantly. And throughout the city of Fallujah, throughout the month, we had a lot of people killed, and just each day, sometimes we'd be hearing, so-and-so was killed, so-and-so was killed.
It was very scary. He was in the infantry, and, I knew he was on the front lines. I would religiously read the New York Times every day and, look at the list of names of the dead and just pray that he wasn't on them.
Stepping off the bus and getting to embrace my wife and see my parents, it was, I can't put into words what it felt like.
I knew he was not going to be the same person, so I tried to kind of prepare myself for that, just like reading up on PTSD and that kind of stuff.
The rest of the old squad.
Eventually, we had the memorial service for everybody we lost. 20-something guys. Remembering those guys, remembering the time I had spent with them in the barracks, the fun times we'd had out in town, the training we'd done together, and just knowing that they were no more, they were gone. They felt numbness, anger, sadness and despair. It was hard for me to look the other parents in the eye. Constantly having thoughts of, they probably hate me because I came back and their son didn't. That's when things started to go downhill quite a bit.
It just got worse and worse and worse. You know, he was drinking during the day. You know, we were definitely growing apart.
At a certain point, my wife told me, look, you have to choose between the drinking or me. I stopped that day, and that was July 11th of 2012. I found purpose first through getting therapy, and eventually I noticed that when I started working out again and getting back in shape and getting back into running, I felt good.
When he started doing like triathlons and training for them, I saw a passion for something in life like reawaken in him.
I think endurance sports is almost the perfect prescription for PTSD. Being able to put your body through stress and overcoming that, allowing yourself to be there and letting that anxiety and stress fade away actually builds resilience.
He could train and he could do these things and he could do it in the names of all of his friends that he lost. It really gave him a purpose in life.
Semper Fi, Mike Ergo. Hawaii, the Big Island. The Ironman World Championship. It's no secret this island's beauty and majesty masks a frightening natural intensity. Across almost 4 decades of Ironman, many a supreme athlete have succumbed to its might. Yet for those men and women who have been here before, crafting tactics means you better always be ready to change those tactics. Australian Josh Amberger is a Kona rookie, but he's still in first place. His lead may be temporary, with 2-time Ironman world champion Jan Frodeno lurking.
The history of the race has proven that many times that people who get ahead of themselves, 20+ minutes, lead off the bike, and they still don't manage to win. So it's a brutal race that way, and I think one of the biggest mistakes would be to think too early that you've got this in the bag.
Frodeno leads the pack of pursuers who know that while Amberger may be in the lead, it's Frodeno who needs to be watched.
2-time Ironman world champion, doesn't have a weakness. So how do you beat a guy who doesn't have a weakness? You have to take your biking and running to complete world-class levels.
2 other men keeping a close eye on Frodeno are countryman Patrick Lange, who earned a record-breaking run for 3rd place a year ago, and Sebastian Kienle, the 2014 world champion, who is regarded as the single greatest threat to Frodeno's shot at a three-peat.
I think I can beat Jan, but I have to have an absolutely perfect day. If I'm able to do that, I'm gonna give him at least a very, very hard time, and I'm gonna make him earn that victory, that's for sure.
For the women, Britain's Lucy Charles is still pushing the pace, with American Lauren Brandon just seconds behind. The 2 are currently riding faster than 2-time returning Ironman world champion Daniela Ryf, who respects their talent, but offers a few choice words of caution.
There's always a lot of girls who have a chance. Lucy is a fast girl. I raced her in Gran Canaria, and yeah, she bet me there, so I know she's strong. But if you go too fast, it can really hurt you as well.
As Charles and Brandon apply pressure from the front, there are a few women behind Ryf who seek a share of that spotlight. Australian Sarah Crowley trails Ryf, but isn't backing down to the champ or anyone else.
When I get onto the bike, regardless of where the other girls are, I'm going to be sticking to what I know that I need to do at that point in the race. Things change very quickly in Hawaii, and I think you can get carried away at the start of this race so easily.
American Heather Jackson was out of the water 9 minutes behind the lead. Thanks to her exceptional skills as a cyclist, she has cut into that deficit and finds herself happily in 8th. Back at Kailua Bay, some of the age group athletes are still coming out of the water. The separation between age group and professional is obvious here, and shows just how incredible the athleticism is of someone like Daniela Reef. Here, the obstacles are infinite. No one's experience is the same, and some have greater hurdles to overcome than others.
The start of the 112 miles.
68-year-old Mike Levine's journey began 35 years ago when he was inspired after watching the famous finish of Julie Moss and Kathleen McCartney. Mike signed up the very next year. Today, a turn of events has him back on Hawaii Island. 34 years later, this time, racing with Kathleen McCartney at his side and battling the worst words anyone can hear.
My wife and I had just returned in late March 2015 from a vacation in Hawaii. And I had noticed some abnormalities. I decided after 2 or 3 days of that, without any change, to go in and seek my doctor's attention and try to find out what was going on. We discovered that it was stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It's essentially a death sentence.
He is my love. We have so much happiness between us. And now I'm going to lose him. He's going to be gone. I didn't have much hope. I had very little hope.
Our spirits were broken. We figured it was time to get our affairs in order, plan for the funeral.
Mike was ready to throw the towel in. Mentally, he was finished. He was finished.
Can't tell you what a scary feeling that is when you think your life's going to come to an end.
The turning point for Mike, and for me, it's kind of like an angel that came down from heaven. It's Kathleen McCartney.
The triathlon community, we have huge inspirational impacts on each other. The word on the street amongst our community was like, hey, this guy is dying. You know, he has pancreatic cancer. He's one of our fellow triathletes, which we will do anything for.
Kathleen called me out of the blue, and I was like, oh my God, Kathleen McCartney. She was one of my heroes going way back to 1982.
At that time, Mike, you know, he'd basically been on a couch for much of the last 18 months. So we had coffee, and Mike and I headed out on a bike ride, and we rode for about an hour and just talked. And we had to stop, you know, several times, probably every few miles, because he just couldn't even catch his breath. But at the end of the ride, I mean, I noticed this spark. You know, I thought, wow, there's really something there.
When he came in, he was sick. I mean, he was on opioids. It was quite a struggle just to get him into the treatment center. But the guy he's tough.
We started riding every week and meeting, and he was getting stronger and stronger, and like we'd go faster and farther, and he began to like come alive again.
She opened that door and she started taking him out, and she had his back.
So one day we were out for a ride. I'd say it was in late March, and I was just half joking. I said, hey, maybe I ought to think about doing Ironman again. And she said, Mike, I think you could do it.
1 year removed, and here he is today.
Doing Ironman to me is a celebration of life. I didn't want to plan a funeral. I decided I want to live, and I wanted to do Ironman. To me, that's life.
The vast breadth of Hawaii's landscape is endless. The ultimate sports destination. This place is epic. So it's fitting that this majestic landscape serve as a venue for one of the greatest and most demanding athletic days on Earth. Along with the heat and humidity, the island's winds can reach 60 miles an hour or more. So far today, the heat and humidity is present, but the winds are unusually calm. The professional men were led by rookie Josh Amberger. But as they head toward the turnaround and the village of Hawi, the leaders of the pack chasing him made up a 6-minute deficit, and they passed the Australian champion in a blur. Canadian Lionel Sanders, German Sebastian Kienle, and former Olympic rower and World Tour cyclist Cameron Wurf now collectively set the pace. The three men are using their ability on the bike to break away from the chase pack. It's a tactic that has worked in the past and forced defending champ Jan Frodeno and Patrick Lange into a crucial decision: try to catch them or save their energy for the run. For now, Sanders is the man setting the pace, and it's aggressive.
Lionel, he's definitely one of the guys who could influence the race on the bike. He likes to race, how we say in Germany, in the sun, so in the front. So probably I'm gonna be his shadow.
So far, this plan of attack is working out for Sanders. He's in the lead, adjusting on the go, and pushing a rigorous pace. For the women, Brit Lucy Charles is still leading, trailed closely by American Lauren Brandon. The two women swam the 2.4 miles together, and now they're surging together on the bike. Right behind them is none other than defending champion Daniela Ryf. Though she came out of the water in 8th place, she's used the front women as motivation to launch into 3rd.
Every person you can catch, it's like a little positive success, you know, like, yeah, I got someone, and then you can focus on the next person.
Equally as confident as Ryf is the woman right behind her, Sarah Crowley, who's not shying away from what she needs to do for a world title.
There's a lot of girls in the race that can take it to Daniela. She's a human like we all are. But race day is race day, and everyone has to focus on their own race.
Rounding out the contenders is American Heather Jackson. That she's pacing with the leaders is impressive. She lost 9 minutes in the swim, but thanks to her exceptional skills as a cyclist, she's now in 6th. On the men's side, Canadian Lionel Sanders is approaching the turnaround in Hawi. This is his 3rd attempt to win Kona, and so far his plan looks sound, and now he can see his competition. Sebastian Kienle is right there, along with American Tim O'Donnell and Australian Cameron Wurf. Each knows that this moment, this marker, is important.
It's just that point in the race where things get real. When you hit that turnaround, okay, now the race is really starting. There may be 30 guys still in that front group, but not for long.
You make the turn, and that's when all bets are off because, I mean, being in the pack's not really going to help you very much anymore. It's a very individual bike ride at that point.
Jan Frodeno hits the turn and appears determined not to let the front of the race get too far ahead. But he knows that's difficult with Sanders in the lead.
Lionel Sanders is probably the guy who has vowed many times not to be in the pack. And he's made no secret of wanting to attack down Hawi. So he's obviously found that spot for himself as well.
Just after the turn, Cameron Wurf forces the issue, jumping into the front position ahead of Sanders. His surge is expected. Wurf is a former pro cyclist whose goal is to open up a huge lead to break the will of those chasing him. As the best cyclist tries to gain an advantage, the strongest runner in the field is falling behind. With 52 miles to go on the bike, Patrick Lange is down over 2 minutes. His Kona dreams may disappear if he doesn't change the situation. around 9:30 a.m., the winds and temperature rise, and the age group athletes begin to feel the resistance that the island puts up against success. They may not be as fast as the pros, but everyone competing on Hawaii Island today is an exemplary athlete. And their backgrounds and stories of how they got here are as diverse as the landscape that surrounds them. Sometimes one look may hint at the challenges they face, while for others, the obstacles are not as obvious. Marine Mike Ergo fought in the deadliest battle of the Iraqi War. He's doing this to inspire veterans with PTSD that it can be overcome. For Mike Levine, it's the sense of the community that pushes him forward and provides hope. Just 1 year ago, he was resigned to death. Today, he's doing this.
I never thought a year ago that Kathleen McCartney, the 1982 world champion, would become my confidant, my mentor. She was so inspirational, saying, Mike, you can fight, you can live, you can still have a good life. But first and foremost, I have to give all the credit to my primary caretaker, the love of my life, my beautiful wife, Jan. She's been by my side from day one. I thought I was a strong person at one time, but without her support, I wouldn't be here right now.
Right here at the Ironman World Championship. Back on the island of Hawaii, the 2017 Ironman World Championship rages on. The strongest cyclists in the professional men's field are where they should be, leading the charge, trying to put as much distance between themselves and the exceptional runners who trail behind. It's the old where and how do you make your play. The leader is Australian Cameron Worth, using his impressive skills on the bike to the max. He's destroying the Ventum bike course, on pace to shatter the course record. Worth is trailed by Canadian Lionel Sanders and 2014 Ironman World Champion Sebastian Kienle. Two men who are quite familiar with this race and this island.
When it comes to tactic, you could make a lot of plans. They don't work because in the race it's always different and you have to work with what you got on that day, and you should not be afraid of making decisions. You can't win the race if you stay in the pack at one point. You have to make a move.
Since the turn at Hawaii, the three men have been on personal best rides. Trailing the action by 2 minutes is Olympic gold medalist and back-to-back Ironman world champion Jan Frodeno. Frodeno is an extraordinary athlete who is capable of making up that deficit on the run if he hasn't cooked himself on the bike. Trailing by almost 10 minutes now is last year's third-place finisher Patrick Lange. In order to catch the front of the race, the best runner in the field will have to dig deeper than he had hoped.
3 to 5 minutes behind the leader, for me, would be a good situation. I'm judged by the positions. So I definitely want to end up again on the podium, and that's what the people expect.
For him to do that, Lange will have to make up 10 minutes now, significantly more than the 3 to 5 he's comfortable with. Meanwhile, the leader, Cameron Worth, pulls into transition 2, completing the 112-mile Ventum bike course in record time.
Okay, here he comes, Cameron Worth. And Cameron just set the new bike course record here in Kona.
Behind Worth is Sanders.
Second place, Lionel Sanders, Ottawa, Canada.
And 30 seconds behind him is Sebastian Kienle.
Cameron Worth heading out on the run.
As Worth hits the Hoka One run course, world champion Jan Frodeno enters transition 2. Behind, but not so far behind that he can't make a move. On to the final leg of this Ironman World Championship, Lionel Sanders wastes little time. Sprinting out of transition, he catches a fading Worth. And it all happens in the first mile. Sebastian Kienle has won here before, so he's aware he cannot let Sanders get too far ahead. Kienle is riding the line and hoping Sanders went out too fast and too early. For the last 2 years, Jan Frodeno has laid his claim on this race. This is where world champions are made. All eyes are now on him as he makes his push for a three-peat.
Off the bike, Patrick Lange, who owns a run course record here.
Fellow German Patrick Lange is 10 minutes and 34 seconds behind the leader, which would seem like he's out of it. But he's got record-breaking abilities in the run if he still has the strength to tap into it. Next up, the professional women. Switzerland's Daniela Ryf has found a new gear. After the turn in Hawi, Ryf let her bike loose and closes the gap on Lauren Brandon and Lucy Charles. Ryf is well aware of what she needs to do and when and where she needs to push it.
My tactic the last few years were quite similar. Of course, you want to try to, make a move on the bike. It's always a nice thing if you can enter transition as the first person.
The time is now. Ryf overtakes Lauren Brandon. And as she scans ahead, she has her sights set on the leader, Lucy Charles.
My plan is really just to ride my own race. I've done 2 Ironmans this year, so that seemed to pan out pretty well riding like that. I expect Daniela to come past at some stage, and depending on how I'm feeling at that stage will depend how I react.
At one point on the bike, Ryf was down 5.5 minutes to Charles. Now, as Charles expected, Ryf catches her and can't help but manage a smile as she cycles by.
Okay, there she is.
Ryf completes the bike in a time of 4 hours, 53 minutes, 10 seconds. Within a minute of her time from a year ago, which launches her into first place.
24-year-old Lucy Charles.
Charles rolls into transition 2, 54 seconds behind Ryf. While the time doesn't seem that far back, to catch the champion, Charles will need to post the fastest marathon of her life, a time in the sub-3 hour range. The challenge? Daunting, but the kind of thing this race demands.
Lauren Brandon, Fort Worth, Texas.
Behind them, pulling into transition in third place, is Lauren Brandon. As Daniela Ryf begins her marathon.
Here she comes!
26.2 miles to go.
2-time defending champion!
A few minutes behind is Sarah Crowley, who tried to stay with Ryf on the bike, but couldn't maintain the pace on the final approach to transition 2. Just a minute behind Crowley is Heather Jackson. The American strength is in the run, and she knows it's her opportunity to shine. In the early miles of the run, Lionel Sanders is in unfamiliar territory. He's leading in the last leg of this Ironman World Championship. 2 minutes behind is Sebastian Kienle. Things are still under control. Meanwhile, running into third is American Ben Hoffman. A run from him like this is not a surprise. But this is. Only 2 miles into the marathon, and back-to-back world champion Jan Frodeno appears to be in pain and has stopped running. While he doesn't appear ready to give up, he is rapidly losing time and distance to the men in front. It's devastating. The opportunity of a third Ironman World Championship could be all but gone. The Ironman World Championship, Hawaii Island. 2,400 amateur athletes are all over the 112-mile Ventum bike course. In front of them, 93 professionals speed their way through the final leg of the triathlon, the run. Canadian Lionel Sanders is battling out front, determined to leave everything he has out on the course. His effort has given him a 2-minute lead over German Sebastian Kienle, who is unsurprised seeing Sanders in first place.
I think this year Lionel improved a lot. He's capable of winning this race one day.
I don't feel any pressure. I've come here to race. I've come here to go toe-to-toe with these best guys, and I'm very, very, very mentally prepared to go home in a stretcher, absolutely.
Sanders' passion and determination is readily apparent, but will his body cooperate? Meanwhile, just behind Kienle is American Ben Hoffman. He's had success on this island with a second-place finish in 2014. So he's well aware of what is needed in the final stretch of the marathon if he is to reach the podium. Hoffman is currently 7 minutes behind the leader, Sanders, yet his great concern shouldn't be what's ahead. It's who's coming up fast from behind that should worry him. Launching from 11th off the bike and into 4th place is Patrick Lange, whose form appears to be strong. He's outpacing the men in front of him and quickly is closing the gap. The 31-year-old German hopes his prior experiences here on the island of Hawaii will prove the difference in making up the time deficit. As Lange approaches the toughest part of the run, the heat and humidity of what people call the energy lab, he passes Ben Hoffman and moves into 3rd place, within striking distance of Sanders and Kienle. Historically, it is absolutely cruel what happens there. On the women's side, Daniela Reef is pulling away from Lucy Charles. The defending champ is running fluidly as she did the last 2 years, which won her back-to-back Ironman World Championships. She knows that if the conditions and pressure don't get to her now, a 3rd consecutive world title is within reach, and with it, consideration as one of the greatest Ironman athletes of all time. As for Britain's Lucy Charles, now pacing 3 minutes behind Reef, the battle to remain in 2nd place has commenced. After overtaking Lauren Brandon, Heather Jackson and Aussie Sarah Crowley are in a furious battle. For Jackson, a 3rd place finish a year ago only makes her hungrier to stand atop the podium yet again in 2017.
I definitely feel pressure here in Kona coming off of last year's performance, but yeah, I'm just going to go out and execute what I know I can and kind of not think about that pressure.
For now, Jackson is holding on to 3rd place and even passes back-to-back men's champ Jan Frodeno, who has stumbled in his quest for 3 in a row, yet refuses to quit. That same approach is ingrained in every athlete still on the course. Pushing through boundaries or stretching beyond the limitations life imposes. Ironman provides a window into such tales, a reminder that impossible may not always be so. And not everyone has to reach the finish line to get what they came for. 68-year-old Mike Levine restarted his Ironman journey 9 months ago after being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Motivated and encouraged by former champion Kathleen McCartney, the duo worked hand in hand to get Mike back to Kona after a 3-decade absence.
The journey just begins after Ironman. After that, I want to reach out to as many cancer patients as I can. Give them support, hug them, hold them, and just tell them, don't give up. Fight. I fought. You can fight. We can all fight together, the whole community.
Mike Levine fought the great fight today, but ultimately it was not to be. While his quest for the finish line came up short, his thumbs up at the start, the journey off his bed, staring death in the eyes, his wife smiles, the belief he gives us all. That which is priceless. That is the spirit of Mike Levine. That is the spirit of Ironman. Back in the marathon on Hawaii Island, and the final stage of the Ironman World Championship. Lionel Sanders' game plan appears to be working in his favor. The Canadian triathlete came to Hawaii Island wanting to race with Germany's Sebastian Kienle, a man who has achieved much success in Hawaii. After racing side by side for the swim and bike, Sanders has pressed on the run and has been slowly pulling away from the German. As he enters the Natural Energy Lab, Sanders finds himself with a growing lead over Kienle. But the hardest part of the course is right in front of him.
I know all the other guys are training with the Energy Lab in their mind. For instance, Patrick Lange said a lot of his really hard training is all to run well in the Energy Lab. These guys are going to be tough as nails in these really tough conditions.
Trailing Sanders and Kienle is a surging Patrick Lange, the man with the fastest run on this course. The 31-year-old German is closing in on the 2 men ahead of him, but he may be running out of time. For the women, Switzerland's Daniela Rief was 8th out of the water and came off the bike with just under a minute lead over Lucy Charles. Since then, she sustained her strength and continues to expand on her lead. Charles is putting in a solid performance, but her time in second place is being challenged, with American Heather Jackson steadily gaining on her. In fourth is Australia's Sarah Crowley, who's now trying to get back in podium position. She's closed the gap between herself and Jackson. As Crowley makes her move past the American, will Jackson seed third without a fight, or will she make one final push? Making the turn in the Energy Lab, the leader, Lionel Sanders, now has a significant hitch in his running stride. It seems the legendary Kona conditions are wearing on the leader. Sebastian Kienle is still just a few minutes behind. And even more concerning to both Sanders and Kienle should be Patrick Lange, who looks as though he just started the marathon as opposed to being near its finish.
Patrick's a guy who could be a runaway. He's legit, and he'll be here for the next, 5-6 years, so it's only going to get better.
The final 6 miles come with 134 behind you. On this road back to town and the finish line on Ali'i Drive, dreams have been crushed. And for the leader, Lionel Sanders, his dream seems on the verge of becoming a nightmare. Not far behind him, Sebastian Kienle's dream of another Ironman World Championship appears to be fading too. Losing time out of the Energy Lab, Kienle is seeing the now second-place position run past him in a flash. Patrick Lange is picking up his pace, while the rest of the field holds on for dear life. It's coming down to time, distance, and what's in your soul. With just 3 miles to go, one wonders if Lionel Sanders can work through the pain and hold off the fastest runner in the field. The physical and mental challenge of the day can wear the body down so much so, it can lose control at the worst possible time. That's something 51-year-old former professional triathlete Shawn Welch can relate to. She's returned to Kona 20 years to the day to celebrate her iconic moment in Ironman history. It was the 1997 Ironman World Championship. Shawn was in a tight battle for a podium position with Wendy Ingram when both women began to break down in a fashion so many in the world had never seen, just within sight of the finish line.
I really had no choice. I could not stay on my legs. Every time I'd get up, I would fall down.
It was excruciating pain. It felt like someone had taken a baseball bat to my legs. I tried to run by her, and then as she was falling backwards, she fell into me, and then I tipped over. I'm trying to get up. I can see the finish line, and I'm like, crawl.
And I just looked at her and I thought, that is a great idea.
That moment is indelibly etched in the memory of the millions who have seen it. And it remains one of the most definitive answers to the question, how much do you want it?
Unbelievable, Sean. So unbelievable.
20 years later, Sean is off the bike and looking to cross the line again and prove she still wants it. The 2017 Ironman World Championship is nearing its completion for the professional athletes. For 23 miles of the marathon, Lionel Sanders has been pushing his body to the limit. You can hear how much he wants this. But simply wanting something doesn't beat someone else wanting it too. Down 10 minutes off the bike, Patrick Lange has been flying through the run course. Behind Lange, Great Britain's David McNamee is having his own stellar marathon. He came off the bike with Lange 10 minutes back, but McNamee's pace now has him overtaking Kienle into third place. As Kienle falls to fourth, Lange surges past the struggling Canadian Sanders. His focus is now clear, his rhythm smooth. An Ironman World Championship is within reach. Back in the women's professional race, Daniela Ryf is showcasing her all-around strengths. Out of the water in 8th place, she put in the fastest bike on the day and has been unchallenged on the run. An incredible third world title in a row seems inevitable. Question now becomes, who will place behind her? The difference between 2nd and 4th place is only 2 minutes. Currently, Lucy Charles is holding on to 2nd. But Sarah Crowley is closing in after finally pushing ahead of Heather Jackson. As their battle for the podium continues in the women's field, the day is nearing an end for the professional men. And no man has ever run the Ironman course faster than Patrick Lange. Ironman World Champion, the most coveted title in the sport. And German men have owned it the past 3 years. Kienle in 2014, Frodeno in 15 and 16. Now make it 4 consecutive German wins, but none faster than this. Patrick Lange is the 2017 Ironman World Champion.
World Champion, Patrick Lange! And a new course record!
In his 3rd attempt at this race, Canadian Lionel Sanders nearly pulled it off today. Yet he'll settle for a hard-earned 2nd place.
Let's welcome from Windsor, Canada, Lionel Sanders!
The UK's David McNamee had the 2nd fastest run of the day, which moves him into an impressive 3rd place finish and a spot upon the podium. Sebastian Kienle fought to the end, leaving it all on the course. He claims the 4th slot. The celebration is just beginning. Now this storied finish line prepares for the professional women. Running as fast as she did when she started the marathon, Switzerland's Daniela Ryf is now closing out her championship day. Ryf heads up Ali'i Drive in 1st. A familiar sight to Ironman fans. Great remains great.
Warriors bringing Daniela home!
Clearly overwhelmed, she achieves the extraordinary. 3 straight Ironman World Championships. The 2017 Ironman World Champion is Daniela Reed.
Daniela Reed!
In her first World Championship as a professional, Lucy Charles takes second place.
Lucy Charles!
The 24-year-old Brit is surprised and overjoyed by her remarkable finish. And rounding out the women's podium is Australia's Sarah Crowley.
Sarah Crowley, third place overall!
She placed 15th last year, but earns a spot upon the podium in 2017. 1 minute behind Crowley, American Heather Jackson takes fourth.
Heather Jackson, USA!
The professionals have crowned their 2017 Ironman World Champions, but this race is far from over. Olympic gold medalist and two-time Ironman World Champion Jan Frodeno shows it's not always about winning. He could have dropped out at the 2-mile mark on the run when he started walking. Instead, Jan chose to finish what he started.
Jan Frodeno, Germany, you are an Ironman.
There are still over 2,400 athletes out on the course, fighting to make it across the finish line. All of them hoping to hear their name as they cross.
Sergio Acosti Bellinen, you are an Ironman. And Lucas Antonetti, Alba, Reggio Marino, Adam Hill, California, you're an Ironman.
Hearing those names and seeing those faces means they're alive and thriving. Each person etching him or herself into the record book. For veteran Mike Ergo, names have another meaning. He carries 29 of them on his back, from Iraq towards the finish line.
I can honor these guys by telling other people about them. Such brave, courageous, heroic men. And for their families, too, to let them know that their sons, their husbands, you know, their loved ones are still alive in our hearts and our memories. And so that helps me find strength within myself to keep going.
Hey, you little ones.
Doing great. You look good.
Love you guys so much.
Love you. All right, Mike. Only the run left.
Mike is on to the run, moving into the final chapter of the day. And Sean Welch, pushing on, hoping to get back to the finish line and celebrate here. Every year at the Ironman World Championship, the final few hours of daylight reveal a level of humanity that is incredible to witness. The professionals have long finished their race. This time of day belongs to everyone else. After a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike, and a full marathon, these final hours are a window into the best of our spirit, what we can be. The goal is to get this far, to cross this line, to hear this sport's most precious words.
You are an Ironman!
As the sun slips toward the horizon, many names are in jeopardy of never being heard. To finish, to become an Ironman, these men and women must look inward, embracing the reasons that brought them here. Most of these athletes started the day racing against others in their age group. Now they're racing against the clock. They all must finish within 17 hours. Not a single second more. For Marine Mike Ergo, crossing the finish line and hearing his name carries a weight of fallen brothers, too. Ergo turned to Ironman in the hopes of countering the devastating effects of PTSD. He lost 29 in battle during the Iraq War. He carries all of their names and their families' memories on his back.
To finish Ironman here in Kona means quite a bit to all my friends who are still living, in the sense that nothing is too hard to overcome, and that facing your deepest fears head on is the only way to do it. I think I'm unstoppable now, and nothing's going to stop me from crossing that finish line.
PTSD almost cost Mike his family and his life. Tonight, right now, he's taking it all back.
Mike Ergo, United States Marine, battling for his fallen comrades.
If I can be an example of that, that anyone, any of these guys can do it. Any of these families can face this.
Mike Ergo, you are an Ironman.
After so many miles, so many hours, it all comes down to these few yards and getting across that line. In 1997, Shawn Welch was racing as a professional and looking for an Ironman World Championship. Her collapse and recovering crawl was broadcast around the world.
Determination in this sport is key. If you give up, you never know what that day would have brought.
20 years ago, she came crawling to the finish line. Shawn Welch, you are an Ironman.
What a difference 20 years makes. As the clock ticks toward the 17th hour, the finish line transforms into a celebration. They came from 66 different countries around the world. Firefighters, doctors, bankers, architects, young and old.
You're an Ironman, Raymond. Sigrid, Antonuik, you did it. Ursula, Michael, Dave, amazing. Yes, sir. Erica, Chris, you are an Ironman. Bob and Siri, Tricia, Delamora, Adrian Ho, Andrew Jameson.
Each of them comes with a story. Each of them has their own reason for being here. All of them now share something larger.
You are